say the world is shaped by two things: stories told and the memories they leave behind. Hello, friends. My name is Priyanka, and today I'm going to review the book All Marketers Tell Stories by Seth Godin. Marketers don't sell products, they sell stories. People believe in these stories, and that is when they buy products. People have a worldview that matches with these stories, and that is when they are convinced that these products are the best for them. When we talk about George Riddell's wine glasses, there are a number of wine glasses in the market, but then people buy George Riddell's wine glasses, which are quite expensive. Why is it? It is not because of the glass, it is because of the story that George Riddell attaches with the wine glasses. It makes people believe that yes, the wine tastes better when they have it in the Riddell's wine glass. Why do we buy expensive Puma sneakers when there are so many sneakers available in the market at a much cheaper rate? It is not the sneaker, it is the story that Puma tells, and we believe, and that is why we feel that this is the product that is the best for us. Every marketer tells a great story, but for the story to be great, it must be true. It must make a promise, and that promise must be kept. It must not contradict with itself, and it must match the worldview of the consumer. Mr. Godin, in this book, has divided the process of how marketing works into 5 steps. The first step is that their worldview and frames got there before you did. Whereas the second step says people notice only the new and then they make a guess. The third step says that the first impressions are the start of the story. The fourth step says great marketers tell stories that we believe. The fifth step says that marketers with authenticity thrive. We all want happiness. We all want fun. We want to be safe. We want to have friends and family. When we all want the same thing, why is it that we take different tracks? Why don't we all drive the same car? Why is it that people do not buy the same kind of clothes? It is because people have different worldviews. Not everybody looks at a product with the same worldview. A worldview here is a term that is used to refer values, beliefs, and biases that an individual consumer brings to a situation. Every consumer will have a different worldview when he looks at a product or hears the story that the product tells. Marketers have to frame their stories around the worldview of the consumer so that the consumer believes in their story and buys the product. Every consumer will have a different worldview. If the worldview does not match with your story, do not try to change their worldview. Instead, look for consumers who have the worldview similar to your story and let them. Worldviews are affected by attention, bias, and vernacular. Not every consumer will pay attention to your product, and you cannot force people to pay attention to your product. Bias. When you have a product, some people will like it, some people will not like it. Why is it that when a book is reviewed, some people will give 5 stars to the book, but some will not rate it even with a single star? That is because they have different worldviews and the way they look at the book is completely different. When we talk about vernacular, once the product is being accepted, the consumers have paid attention. The vernacular plays a very important part. The words, the colors, the typing, the lighting, everything that is attached to the product plays a very important part. When a person has a bad experience with a hotel reservation agent, his worldview towards the whole hotel cost a bit. When a consumer has a hard time making a hotel reservation, his worldview towards the rest of the start is stopped.
Start.
When a consumer has a hard time making a hotel reservation, his worldview towards the hotel staff is changed. This worldview can be changed only when he reaches the hotel and has a good interaction with the staff. Only a good interaction, a warm welcome can change this worldview. So changing a worldview somewhere depends on the marketers, but you should never transit
Start.
in the second step, that is, people make in the second step, notice only the new and then make a guess. The author talks about how our brain works. we first look for a difference. That is, if we see a product, we try to relate it with the older product that we have. If we find there is a difference, only then we accept it. Otherwise, we ignore it. We look for coincidences. We try to relate, and then if there is a coincidence, we might again ignore the product. Then they make predictions. They try to predict why is this been happening. In the end, they rely on their cognitive dissonance. That is, if they have paid attention and liked the product, then it will remain in their mind forever and nothing can change it. A garden frog's brain is about 10 grams. That is very less as compared to a human brain. Surprisingly, we use a large chunk of our brain to look at things, that is to see. A garden frog's brain is about 10 grams. That is very small when compared to a human brain. Surprisingly, we use a large chunk of our brain to see and the rest of it to do the other activities. When we look at things, we use almost about 80% of our brain. But when a garden frog who has got a very smaller brain, when there is a fly, he has the ability to catch that fly mid-air, but the humans can't do it, even though they have a larger brain. First impressions start the story. People make judgments very easily. People tend to make judgments even with partial information. First impression is not when the first point of contact. It is when you start telling people your story. The story must be authentic, need not be factual completely. People, you have to build a story in such a way that it matches their worldview and then they believe in it. The story has to be authentic because people, you don't know, the consumer might relate to any part of the story to build his worldview around the story. Therefore, the story must be authentic. Not succeed because they fulfill needs, but they succeed by fulfilling wants. These wants can arise by telling them stories that they believe in. Marketers must build their stories in terms of the worldview of the consumers so that they believe their stories. Great stories are built only by keeping in mind the worldview of the consumers. Step 5. Marketers with authenticity strive. You don't get to make a story. The story happens with or without you. You must tell a story that you live, and that is only when people will believe it. An authentic story need not be factual, but the marketers must live it, and only then will the people believe in the story. If you go to a restaurant wherein the ambience and the experience is very good, but the food on the menu does not match the ambience, the consumers feel fooled. You can fool the consumer once or twice, but once the consumer feels fooled, it will never come back to you and never communicate your story to someone else. Talking about Cold Stone Creamery in Arizona, they started off with a great story. The founders made people believe that ice cream experience can be much better than the boring frozen desserts that are available in the supermarket. They gave people an experience which they cherished. That is why people were ready to pay 10 times more than a normal supermarket ice cream. They started expanding their business in the form of franchises. But not all the franchisee owners were as dedicated as the founders. They did not live up to their story. And people somewhere started believing that the story is a lie. And they have somewhere lost their faith in Cold Stone ice cream. For a marketer to thrive in the market, it is necessary for him to tell a story that is authentic. Only then will people believe it. It concludes by asking us whether you have a storytelling plan, and if you do, then you must follow a certain steps. Your worldview must match of that with the consumer. Only then you will get noticed, because if you don't get noticed, you are invisible. You must frame your story in such a way that the consumer is aware of it, he will listen to it and will believe it. Pick a story that works for you. You must not listen to someone else, or you must not follow someone else's story. because it is not necessary what works for someone else will work for you. Be authentic. The story should be true. You must live it, and only then the consumers will follow it. So when are you starting your story?